Mao Zedong was one of the most important leaders of the 20th century, but his story has many negative aspects. He caused great problems in China, leading to the deaths of millions of people. Let's understand a bit more about who he was and what happened. Mao was born in 1893, and in 1911 a major change took place in China, the end of the monarchy and the creation of the republic. Before continuing with the video, remember to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive notifications of new videos. That way, you won't miss any new content. A few years later, he moved to Beijing, where he started working at a university library. Around that time, in 1921, the Chinese Communist Party was founded, and Mao soon joined it. However, the strongest party at the time was the Kuomintang, the nationalist party that had helped overthrow the monarchy. In China during that period, the country was divided into several regions, each controlled by local nobles. These nobles did not want the monarchy to end. The Kuomintang, with the help of the Communist Party, fought against these nobles, and by around 1927, they won. But at that moment, the leader of the Kuomintang, Chiang Kai-shek, decided he no longer wanted to work with the communists and ordered that they be persecuted and killed. Mao and his followers then created the Red Army and fled to southern China, where they formed a communist republic that ruled over about 10 million people. For many years, the Red Army fought against the Kuomintang, but in 1934, Chiang managed to gather a much larger army and defeated the communists, forcing them to flee. This retreat became known as the Long March, a journey of thousands of kilometers to northern China. Of the 100,000 men who started the march, only 10,000 reached the destination. Meanwhile, Japan, which had a very strong army, invaded China. Mao and Chiang decided to unite forces to expel the Japanese, which happened in 1945 with the help of the Soviet Union and the United States. After Japan's departure, the war between Mao's communists and Chiang's nationalists resumed, and in 1949 Mao won. Chiang and his followers fled to the island of Taiwan, where they established their own government, which still exists today. In 1949, Mao established the People's Republic of China and began to rule the country. He became extremely powerful, practically like an emperor. Mao persecuted his enemies and killed about 1 million people in his first year alone. He also began attacking landowners, as Stalin had done in the Soviet Union, resulting in the deaths of another 2 million people. In 1958, Mao launched a plan called the Great Leap Forward, aiming to industrialize China. He forced peasants to stop producing food and to work in small iron and steel factories. However, the peasants had no experience with this, and the result was disastrous. Food production dropped drastically, and millions of people died of starvation, an event known as the Great Famine. In the 1960s, Mao lost some of his power within the Communist Party, but in 1966, he launched the Cultural Revolution to regain it. He encouraged young people to fight everything that was old, such as old ideas, traditions, and even teachers and scientists. Many of these people were humiliated, tortured, and sent to re-education camps, where they were forced to work under terrible conditions. Millions died in these camps. Mao was also married to an actress named Jiang Qing, who, along with 3 allies, became known as the Gang of Four. They helped intensify the Cultural Revolution, and Jiang had a significant influence on the government. During this time, Mao published the famous Little Red Book, where he laid out his ideas about what he believed was the right path for China. Although Mao is remembered as a great leader, his story is marked by decisions that brought much suffering to the Chinese people. Although Mao Zedong claimed that he was fighting against old ideas and habits, what he really promoted was a major setback. He wanted a simple and primitive life, where everything that represented progress and civilization was destroyed. Temples and historical monuments were torn down, millions of books were burned, and works of art were lost. This period is known as the Lost Decade by historians, even by the Chinese, as it severely harmed China's future, making the country's reconstruction very difficult. When Mao finally died in 1976, Deng Xiaoping, one of the Communist Party leaders whom Mao had sent to the re-education camps, survived and returned to power. Mao's wife, along with her 3 allies, who became known as the Gang of Four, were convicted as criminals. Mao's widow, Jiang Qing, was sentenced to death, but her sentence was commuted to life in prison, and in 1991 she committed suicide. Deng Xiaoping was the one who truly began transforming China into the powerhouse it is today. Contrary to what some may say, Mao was not responsible for this progress. In fact, he caused much suffering and destruction. During his rule, millions died from starvation or in terrible conditions in concentration camps, where teachers, scientists, and artists were forced to work as slaves. Mao can be compared to Roman emperors who cared only about their own interests. Interestingly, despite his dark history, Mao's Little Red Book became very popular in Europe, especially in France. Intellectuals and artists began to identify with his ideas, even though he was against culture and knowledge. This admiration for Maoism is strange, as Mao's actions in China completely contradicted what Marx wrote about socialism, which was supposed to come after capitalism and be led by the working class. When Mao died, China was in a critical situation. It had no scientists, engineers, or intellectuals, only widespread poverty. Deng Xiaoping took advantage of this cheap labor to turn the country into a major producer of goods. In the 1980s, many international companies such as Nike began manufacturing their products in China, taking advantage of the low production costs. This brought great profits and strengthened the country's economy, allowing it to grow and become a global power. If you want to better understand this period of history, some recommended films are The Last Emperor, directed by Bernardo Bertolucci, which shows the life of the last emperor of China and his downfall during the communist regime. Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress, which depicts life in one of the re-education camps, and Sympathy for the Devil, which offers a view of Maoist ideas in the European context. These films help illustrate this time of great difficulties and injustices. Although we've seen many films about the atrocities of Nazism, we rarely have films depicting the horrors of the gulags in the Soviet Union or Mao Tse-tung's terrible actions in China. It is important to remember these tragic moments in history so that we can better understand the consequences of the actions of leaders like Mao and reflect on how these ideologies influence the world. If you enjoyed the story and want to support the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. You can also become a member to further encourage the content. See you next time.